you can do an electronic, geometrical, quantum, chemical descriptors, and fragmental, structural. All these can be done. There is a vast area where you can try to see in QSAR. Okay, so next slide. Next slide, please. So what exactly is QSAR? As I told you, you have a molecular. Previous slide, please. The basic thing what you have to do in QSAR is that uh, when you have previous slide, please. Previous slide, please.
Hello.
Previous slide.
Hey, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Where
Yeah.
I'm seen now.
Yeah. Now, when we are saying that you are trying to put a molecular structure and the activity, how they are related to each other, now you can take the molecular structure in the bigger box which you are seeing. That means how the structure is, what are the functional groups which it is having, all those things have to be fed as the molecular properties. And the activity, that is the response, can be given in a smaller box. And now you are relating these two where it is x and y. So you can plot the graph as scatter plot, where you can say that the x and y axis are these parameters which you have, and based on these parameters you can plot a graph which is like this, almost not that exact what you are seeing in this graph, but the data points will be randomly put. Now you have to draw a line to see how exactly they are correlated, and then you can validate it with the quasar model to get a predicted activity for the new molecules. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is what is the importance of QSAR model. Now, in silico is a computational method in which you are trying to analyze how these structure to activity relationships can be quantified, and you can predict the in vitro activity of this molecule without doing the in vitro studies. And also you can predict in vivo, that is on animals, when you are doing how the prediction can be also can be done by QSAR model. That too you can do it in a computational model, or you can take the study which you have in vivo as well as in vitro. Those two can be correlated and put into the in silico studies to get a better understanding of these quasar models. Okay, apart from that, there is a possibility that you have an alternate method which is called as a fast method, where you can reduce the cost and the animal testing by doing this kind of in silico studies. And by this you will be getting most promising quantitative structure activity relationship, and there is no need for doing an in vitro and in vivo studies to predict the structure activity relationship or predict the biological activity for the new molecules. So this way, once you predict the biological activity for the new molecules, there is a possibility that you know that this molecule has a better biological activity than the other molecules which you have designed. So based on that, you can only synthesize those molecules which are having a better biological activity compared to the other ones. That way, what you are doing is you are doing a cost cutting, and also you need not do an animal testing for large number of molecules. And because of that, you are reducing the cost as well as the time of the given molecule. Fine. So the next slide, please. Now, this is as already I have told, you can put the biological activity on the y-axis and the um uh, physicochemical parameter on the x-axis, and then plot a graph to understand how they are related to each other. So not only you can have a log p as an physicochemical parameter, you can take several other parameters like ionization constant, electronic parameters, partition coefficient, lipophilicity, hydrophobicity, steric. How these are affecting the biological activity can be easily understood by just plotting a linear graph between these two molecules. Okay. So next is, when you correlate this biological activity with the physicochemical parameters, as you see, a straight line or a linear relationship is obtained, and this linear relationship will be correlated with a correlation coefficient of +1 or -1. It is always said the R, which is the correlation coefficient, will be uh, will be will has to be a measurable quantity, and it need not be +1. +1 means, next slide, it is a false positive thing where we are saying that it is exactly correlated with the biological activity. This generally doesn't happen. So the value which we are talking about as +1 has to be approximately 0.9 to nearer to 1, not more than, or not exactly 1. So this has to be taken care when we are talking about this really linear relationship between the biological activity and the physicochemical properties. Okay, next slide. Now we'll go into the other physicochemical properties which will be used to understand the quantitative structure activity relationship. Now I have just taken up the first physicochemical property, that is the ionization constant, which is also called as a pKa. So if you take this molecule of 6-methoxy-salicylamide, where this hydroxyl group which is present, if you can remove this H plus ion, how much is the what is the ionization constant of this? So based on that, because it is a psychotic drug, they wanted to know if this hydroxyl group H plus ion, if you can get, that will be having a better hydrogen bonding with the carbonyl group of the amide. To understand this, what they have done is they have gone for substitutions at these ortho and para positions to understand how these substituents have an effect on the hydroxyl group, which will improve the hydrogen bonding between this hydroxyl hydrogen and the carbonyl. Next. So here they have put many substituents to understand how this ortho substitution will be affecting, and they came to a conclusion that if you have an electron withdrawing group at this position, this has the capability of pulling the electrons of the oxygen into the aromatic ring, and because of that there will be a partial positive charge on this hydrogen, which will help in improving the hydrogen bond interaction between these two. And next, and when they try to put an steric group at this position of Y, it is seen that this group, which is having it is a bulky group, will try to, yeah, Tejasvi, is there any question?
No, man, you can continue. Finally, after completion session, they can ask me.
Okay, okay. So because of this bulky group, what is happening is there is a drift in the methyl group which is present here. So it will try to move in this direction. When it is moving, obviously the amide group also tries to shift a little bit closer towards the hydrogen of the hydroxyl group, making this hydrogen bond a stronger one. Because of these substitutions at this XY position by electron withdrawing group and a steric group, they have seen that the antipsychotic activity of this drug was improved a lot compared to without having any substitutions at these groups. Okay, a simple 6-methoxy-salicylamide, when it was taken and when these substitutions were put onto this, so they did not disturb the drug as such, but they have just changed the substituents to understand how they can improve the biological activity of this molecule. And it is to their surprise, it was seen that this molecule was having a very high biological activity compared to the starting lead molecule. Next slide, please. So this is another physicochemical parameter which we are talking about, this is again an ionization constant which we are talking about, but this is an electronic effect of the substituents explained using ionization of benzoic acid and several other substituents on the benzoic acid. Initially, what they have done is they have taken benzoic acid in water and tried to understand the ionization. As you all know, benzoic acid is a weak acid, it ionizes, and because of this ionization there will be an equilibration obtained, that is, this ionization is not that strong, so it again reverts back into benzoic acid, and because of that there will be an equilibrium. So the equilibrium for this can be calculated as KH, where the concentration of the product by the concentration of the reactant will give you the ionization constant of this. Okay, so here next what they have done is they have gone for checking the substitution effects on the ionization of benzoic acid. For that what they have done is they have taken the substituents like electron withdrawing groups to understand how the ionization will be affected by this substituent. So to say that because you have an electron withdrawing group, the negative charge on the carboxylate group will be stabilized. Because of that, more of the ionized product will be seen in the solution. So there is a large Kx. That is, the concentration of the product is more compared to the concentration of the reactant. Okay, now when they have put an electron withdrawing group, the ionic nature of this benzoic acid was reduced, and it was going into a backward direction, giving rise to the starting material. So here there will be a smaller Kx. So here you can also calculate the Hammett substituent constant, where you can say it is log Kx by Kh. Kx is nothing but if you have a substitution on the benzoic acid. Kh is when you don't have a substitution on the benzoic acid. By this you can calculate the sigma x, which is called as the Hammett substituent constant. Suppose you have electron withdrawing groups present, you will have a positive sigma x because the Kx will be larger, and when you have electron donating groups like the alkyl substituents, then the sigma x will be negative because this will be a smaller value of Kx. When you have a smaller Kx, the value will be in the negative because Kh will be larger than that. Next slide. Now, the Hammett substituent constant also depends upon resonance and inductive effect, and where exactly are the substituents present? Are they at the meta or para position? And if you take the example of nitrobenzene having a substituent at this position, you can see that this molecule, when it is having a meta position, there is only an inductive effect which is playing a role in the helping the stabilizing the ionic nature of nitro group. But here, if you see, not only the inductive effect, but also the resonance effect is playing a role. Because of that, there will be a more stabilized para-nitro substituted group compared to the meta-nitro substituted group, assuming that the R group is an electron withdrawing group or an electron donating group. Depending upon that, you can talk about the resonance and the inductive effect. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, if we talk about partition coefficient, we all know that partition coefficient, partition coefficient, if you are talking about, we are talking about the octanol water ratio. Why we need to understand about the partition coefficient is that will help to understand how any drug molecule which is present, can it be going into the lipophilic region? Lipophilic is nothing but the octanol region, or is it hydrophilic? Because of that, is it going into the aqueous region? aqueous layer. So by the partition coefficient, you will know whether the drug is hydrophobic or hydrophilic. So that will help in that will make you understand whether a drug molecule will be going into the CNS or a PNS region. Okay, so based on that, you can easily understand varying the substituents on the lead. You can produce several analogs with having different hydrophobicities, and therefore different p values can be obtained. So based on these different p values obtained by substitutional changes, you can plot these p values against the biological activity of these drug molecules. It is possible to see if there is any relationship between these two properties. So the biological activity is normally expressed by log 1 by C, where C is the concentration of the drug required to achieve a defined level of biological activity. The reciprocal of the concentration, that is 1 by C, is used because if you reduce the concentration and if you can improve the biological activity, that is the best drug which we can talk about. Now, if you see this graph, which is a linear graph plotted against log 1 by C versus log P, in this study, where the range of the log P values is restricted to a small range, that is, P is either from 1 to 4, not more than that. When you have a log P value from 1 to 4, you can use a linear graph. In this case, you will see a straight line obtained showing that there is a relationship between hydrophobicity and biological activity. When you have such relationship, you will have this following equation like log 1 by C is equal to minus K1 log P plus K2. That means log P and the biological activity are related in this case. Okay. Now, if you have a large range of substituents present, because when you have more number of a range of log P values to be studied, it is said that the graph will be like a parabolic graph. Here the biological activity increases as the log P value increases until a maximum value is obtained, which is designated as log P naught. The value of log P at the maximum is represented as log P naught, or optimal partition coefficient, or else it is called as a optimum partition coefficient. Beyond that point, an increase in log P results in decrease in biological activity. If the partition coefficient is the only factor influencing the biological activity, the parabolic curve can be expressed by the equation, which is log 1 by C minus K1 log P square plus K2 log P plus K3. Here, if you notice, log P square term has a minus sign in front of it. Means when P is small, the log P square term is very small and the equation is dominated by the log P term, the second term. This represents that the first part of the graph where activity increases with increasing P. When P is large, then what happens is the log P square term is also more significant, and eventually the log P term will be showing that there will be a decrease in the biological activity because of this increase in the log P value. So to an optimum distance, you can say there will be an increase in the biological activity, but as you increase the log P value, there will be a decrease in the biological activity. This is also true because as you increase the hydrophobicity of a drug molecule, there is a possibility that it will not go and interact with the site of action. Rather, it will be lingering around the muscle region where there is a lot of fat and deposits there. So you have to be very careful while designing a molecule so that you will have a optimum log P value, not more than that. Next slide, please. So the lipophilicity constant, which we are talking about, is represented as pi. So there is a possibility that you can calculate the lipophilicity for all the log P, what we are calling as log P for many of the molecules, but it is not possible to synthesize all the molecules to understand whether you can calculate the log P value for all the molecules which you have. For that, there should be another way of calculating the log P value. So that has been expressed by this lipophilicity constant called as pi. So if suppose you have, let us assume you have benzene, chlorobenzene and benzamide, for which you already have the log P values. Now using these log P values, you can calculate, you can see from benzene to chlorobenzene, the difference in log P is 2.13 and log P of chlorobenzene is 2.84. So you can take the substitutional lipophilicity constant from these two. So when you subtract benzene from chlorobenzene, you will get a value of 0.17. Whereas when you have benzene and benzamide, there is a reduce in the log P value. So when you subtract 2.13 from 0.64, you will get a minus 1.49, which is the pi x value. So now using this lipophilicity constants, you can calculate for the molecules which you have not checked for the log P values. Now suppose we want to calculate for metachlorobenzamide. Okay, so what you can do is you can calculate the log P of chlorobenzamide by taking the log P of benzene. You know the log P of benzene, and you have the lipophilicity constant for chloro, that is pi Cl, and the lipophilicity constant for amide. So taking these values into consideration, you can calculate the log P of chlorobenzamide. So you have 2.13 for benzene. By subtracting the benzene and chlorobenzene, you got the value of 0.17. That is the lipophilicity constant of chlorine. And when you subtracted benzene from benzamide, you got a value of minus 1.49. That is the lipophilicity constant of amide. So taking these three values, you can actually calculate the log P value of 1.3. This is the simplest example which you can take. Now, there are many tables of lipophilicity constant available in literature. So taking all the lipophilicity constants available in the literature, you can calculate the log P value for n number of molecules by just taking their pi x values and then calculate how much is the log P value for this. Based on that log P, you will analyze whether that drug molecule will be hydrophobic or hydrophilic. So based on that, you can easily design your new molecules. Next slide, please. Next slide. Hello. Okay. Now, the other physicochemical parameter which you have to talk about is the steric factor. Now, the steric factor, if you are talking about, it tells about how the hydrolysis of an ester will be influenced by substituents present on the aliphatic ester. So if you all know, hydrolysis of ester will give you acid and alcohol, right? So this hydrolysis of ester can be checked by the steric factor, which is called as the Taft steric factor, where you can say ES is equal to log Kx minus log K naught. Kx is nothing but the substituent. K naught is when you don't have any substitution present on the aliphatic ester. Okay. So now it is said that when Kx is greater than K naught, ES will be positive. That means the influence of this Kx on the hydrolysis is more compared to a substitute without a substituent. Kx less than K naught means ES will be negative. If you see these values where you have methyl being a 0, which means this is acting as a standard molecule. That means you are taking a X as a methyl group. Now, substituents like hydrogen and fluorine, which are less bulky compared to methyl, will help in hydrolysis of this ester more. And when you talk about ethyl, N-propyl, N-butyl, isopropyl or isobutyl, These substituents are bulky compared to methyl. Because of that, they are all having a negative value. But if you see, when you have ethyl and N-propyl, the values are drastically changed, where it is minus 0.7 and minus 0.36. So it is almost 4 times more compared to more 4 times reduced hydrolysis compared to ethyl. It means the ethyl group is less bulky compared to propyl. But if you say N-propyl and butyl, there is not much difference. It means that as you are extending the chain length, there is no much effect on the hydrolysis of the ester. But if you are branching it, if you see N-propyl to isopropyl, there is again a huge difference. That means the branching is hindering the incoming H plus ion, which is attacking here for the hydrolysis, is the tetrahedral transition state which is forming in the hydrolysis of the ester will be hindered by the branched alkyl groups. That is also visible from isobutyl group. Okay. So this tells you that a bulky group which is present in any given molecule, how it is influencing on the hydrolysis can be studied by Taft's steric factor. Next slide, please. Now coming to Lipinski's rule of 5. Now when we talk about Lipinski's rule of 5, it has been understood by Lipinski, and he has taken many molecules which are all drugs from the World Drug Index data bank, and he has come up with certain potential rules which have to be followed to say that this drug molecule which has been taken, is it orally active or not. So for oral active drug molecules, he has come up with 4 rules rather, and they are, because they are multiples of 5, we are calling it as Lipinski's rule of 5. Now if you see the hydrogen bond donors which we are having here, it is no more than 5. You should have no more than 5 hydrogen bond donors, and molecular weight should be less than 500. It is again a multiple of 5, and log P should be always less than 5, plus the hydrogen bond acceptors which we are talking about, these all also should be less than, not more than 10. So if these 4 rules are obeyed by any drug molecule, we can say that drug molecule can be orally active. That's what was given by Lipinski. But there are certain drug molecules which do not follow this oral active drug rules which have been given by Lipinski, like atorvastatin or rosuvastatin. These molecules don't obey these Lipinski rules. To overcome this drawback, Weber et al. In 2002 demonstrated the rather surprisingly found out that molecular flexibility of any given molecule is one of, what do I mean by molecular flexibility is, it all depends upon the rotatable bonds. How many freely rotatable bonds are present in the structure plays a very important role in the oral bioavailability. So to understand this, they have set up certain rules where they have said that a polar surface area of less than 140 angstroms and less than 10 rotatable bonds is very, very important to understand whether these drug molecules can be orally active or not. So apart from these 4 rules which Lipinski has given, you have to add up 2 more rules now at this stage to understand whether these drug molecules are orally active or not. Those 2 rules are polar surface area. Polar surface area is nothing but the outer surface area of the drug molecule should be polar. That is quite obvious. When you are taking it as an oral drug, it has to be soluble in water, right? So it has to be polar. and rotatable bonds are required. They said that less than or not more than 10 rotatable bonds should be there in a molecule to be acting as an oral drug. That is, these rotatable bonds will be hovering inside the active site of the enzyme or the protein, and then they will have a hydrogen bond interaction with the protein. So these two also are very important apart from the Lipinski's four parameters what he has talked about. Next slide, please. Next slide. So till now what we have seen is the correlation between a single physicochemical parameter and the biological activity. Now when we say Quasar equation related various here what he has done is not only a single physicochemical parameter, but he has taken various physicochemical parameters into consideration and he has correlated with the biological activity. Not single but multiple physicochemical parameters has been correlated in the Hansch equation. So next.
Yes, madam. Yes.
So initially when we were seeing earlier physicochemical parameters, we were saying that there will be a correlation between a single physicochemical parameter on the biological activity. But if you are increasing the number of physicochemical parameters, the equation will be, next slide, next one. It will be like this, where you are taking different physicochemical parameters like log P, sigma, ES. All these physicochemical parameters are related to the biological activity, so that you will get the equation to be log 1 by C, K1 log P, K2 sigma, K3 ES and K4. And also you can correlate it with a parabolic curve, next, where you can, next, no, next. Here the curve will be like this, where you will have a parabolic curve as we have talked about. Equation, next. The equation will be like this: minus K1 log P square, K2 log P, K3 sigma, K4 ES and K5. So here, if we are talking about this equation, we are saying that the first parameter what we have here is a negative parameter. A negative parameter which you are having here is telling you that the log P square value with a negative charge will be having a less effect on the biological activity compared to the other values. So here, if you see the equation, the biological activity to has been related with log P, sigma, ES, and you have some constants like K1, K2, K3, K4, K5. So these K1 to K5 can be, these constants can be determined by computer softwares in order to get a best fit. So all these put together, we can say that this biological activity of Hansch, where he was taking multiple parameters into consideration, also can be correlated with the biological activity. Next slide. Now this has been explained by an example of uh, adrenergic blocking activity of beta haloaryl amines, which is related by pi and sigma and did not include any steric factor. This equation, next. This equation, next slide please, next. This equation which you are seeing here, it is correlated with the biological activity. It says that the pi value, pi is nothing but the hydrophobicity constant and sigma is the electronic parameter. Now the hydrophobicity constant which you are having is a positive value. When you have a positive value, it means that the molecule should be hydrophobic in nature, and sigma is in a negative value. It means that sigma is a electron donating substituent. If you have these two electron donating substituent substituent has to be added to this molecule. So the Y and X parameters which have to be substituted should be in such a way that it should be hydrophobic as well as electron donating substituent has to be added to improve the biological activity. Next slide, please. Now, if we talk about Craig's plot, you must have studied about Craig's plot earlier. It gives a overall relationship between two parameters. Here, we are taking two parameters into consideration. One parameter is pi and the other parameter is sigma. But you can also take other various substituents and construct a scattered plot on the four quadrants which you have. So at a glance, there is a possibility that you can see all the substituents present in a given molecule to understand how they can be, are they present in the positive quadrant, are they present in the negative quadrant, or are they present in plus minus quadrant. Now, if you see all these four quadrants, this quadrant on the right side top is a quadrant where you are having a plus sigma and plus pi. And plus sigma and plus pi means it is an electron withdrawing hydrophobic group. The next left quadrant you have plus sigma and minus pi. It means this is hydrophilic and electron withdrawing. The bottom, the next one which is bottom minus sigma minus pi, it means it has to be electron donating and hydrophilic. Here minus sigma and plus pi is hydrophobic and it is electron donating. So at a glance, you can easily see which substituent of which character you require to understand where what substitution has to be kept in a given molecule. Now, next, if you see in this parameter, next, you have I have just put two lines to understand what is the possibility of this, how best we can use this Craig's plot. Now, if you see this vertical line, you can see that there is a ethyl bromo and a trifluoromethyl group on the same line. It means that all these molecules have a similar kind of hydrophobic nature. That is, the pi value is almost same. Okay, or you can take this group also. Almost, it is almost similar to these. So if you need to substitute the hydrophobic group, you can either substitute with ethyl bromo or CF3 or CF3SO2. Or if you take this horizontal line, you have an acid group, chloro, bromo, and iodo. So here there is a possibility that you need a group where it could be an acid group or a chloro or a bromo or iodo. Suppose I want a substituent where it should be hydrophilic in nature and also electron donating. So I can take up a quadrant where you have the substituents in this quadrant of the left bottom quadrant. Okay, so I can take a hydroxyl group if I'm talking about, or take an amine group. Or suppose I want a substituent which is hydrophilic and electron withdrawing. Then which quadrant I'm supposed to take? The left quadrant which is present here. I can take an amide or a sulfonamide or a cyano group. Any one of these can be taken into consideration. Suppose I want some electron donating and a hydrophobic group. Then I can come to the right bottom quadrant where I'm having a dimethylamine or a tertiary butyl or an ethyl or a methyl. So just picking the substituents will be easy if you plot a Craig's plot and understand how you can pick any substituent from this. So if you are trying to analyze substitutions, you can easily pick up these functional groups and put them to understand whether this will fit properly into this molecule and will it improve the biological activity. Next slide. Now Topliss scheme, this is a schematic representation, a flow diagram which allows us to understand how you can correlate, how a substitutional change will help in improving the biological activity. In this Topliss scheme, there are two types of flow diagrams, one for the aromatic substitution and one for the aliphatic side chain substitution. So first we'll consider the aromatic substitution flow diagram. So in the aromatic substitution, assuming that we have a lead compound that has been tested for biological activity and contains a monosubstituted aromatic ring, and this substitution is at the para position. So we are taking a 4-chloro-benzene substituted to a drug molecule. The first analog in the scheme is the 4-chloro derivative, and this derivative is usually easy to synthesize. The chloro substitution, we know that it is hydrophobic and electron withdrawing, right? So these hydrogen, the electron withdrawing then hydrogen, and therefore pi and sigma values are positive. Pi and sigma are positive. Once the chloro analog has been synthesized, you know the biological activity of this. Then there are three possibilities in which you can understand the biological activity. So the possibilities for this could be, it could be less active like L, equally active like E, and more active like M. The type of activity observed will determine which branch of the Topliss scheme has to be followed next. So here, let us assume that the biological activity increases. That is, it is more active. Then what is the next step which we are supposed to do? That a benzene ring with a chlorine at the 4th position has an increased biological activity. It means that the parameter what we have taken as plus pi and plus sigma, that is hydrophobic and electron withdrawing group. So we try to put these same parameters at the 3rd and the 4th position to see whether it is increasing or not. Suppose we say that there is an increase in the biological activity, it is still more active, then you can improve it by putting a CF3 at the 3rd position and 4-chloro, or CF3 and 4-nitro. So what you are doing is, according to the Craig's plot, you are trying to put those molecules which are having these parameters in that quadrant, and you are trying to put them to see whether it is increasing or decreasing. Suppose, let us assume that this 4-chloro-benzene substituted drug, the biological activity is less. That means these parameters what we are talking about as hydrophobic and electron withdrawing, maybe they are not the correct parameters for the activity. Let us assume that instead of an electron withdrawing group, assume that we put an electron donating group at the same position of the drug. So instead of 4-chloro, you can put 4-methoxy group, which is an electron donating group and a hydrophobic group. Assume that suppose this has an increased biological activity. There is a possibility that you can improve the electron donating nature of this molecule to understand whether this will be helping in increasing the biological activity. Suppose assume that this is still increasing the biological activity. Let us say it is M, more. Then you can put this as it is and also improve the hydrophobic nature of the molecule. Suppose this 4-NME2 is, let us assume that it is less in biological activity. It means that maybe the hydrophobic nature of these methyls is reducing the biological activity. There is some disturbance. Can you please mute that person? Okay. Now, assuming that this is having a less biological activity, it means these methyls, which are hydrophobic in nature, are causing some kind of steric hindrance to the biological activity. So what you can do is reduce these methyls to hydrogen and then understand how it is happening. Or let us assume when you have 4-chloro, there is an equal biological activity. That means this electron withdrawing capability has no effect on the biological activity, then you can try some hydrophobic group here. This hydrophobic group at this fourth position, if it is improving, you can improve the biological activity by increasing the hydrophobic nature of the molecule. Or if it is less, it means the position of the electron withdrawing group may be having some kind of steric problem. So you can change the position of the chloro group to 3-chloro. And if it is increasing, then you improve the substitution, electron withdrawing substitutions at the third position, or you can put at 3,5 position, or you can have 3 nitro at the third position, where you can also put nitro group. Suppose it is equal, whether it is at 4-chloro or whether it is at 3-chloro, if it is equal, it means that the fourth position hydrophobic nature is not correct. You have to go for third position hydrophobic group, or you can put an electron withdrawing group to see how it is increasing. This is how the Topliss scheme, which is a flow diagram, will help in improving the biological activity. So here what we can do is we can only synthesize few molecules, see how their biological activity is, and based on that biological activity, you have to decide whether you have to put a hydrophobic group or a hydrophilic group, electron donating group, or an electron withdrawing group into this schematic scheme, so that you can increase the biological activity of a molecule. So this helps in reducing the number of molecules that you want to synthesize, and you can only synthesize few molecules with improved biological activity. This is about the aromatic substitutions. Next slide, please. Now this is about the aliphatic substitution, which we are talking about. Now assuming that the drug molecule which we are talking about has a substitution which is a methyl group on its side chain. Now what you are doing is you are substituting this methyl group with an isopropyl branched alkyl group and trying to analyze whether it is having low, equal, or a maximum activity, more activity compared to the molecule. Assume that when you are putting an isopropyl group, there is an increase in biological activity. It means that this isopropyl group can be made into a bulky group to improve the biological activity. So you can put a cyclopentyl group. If you have a cyclopentyl group, still it is increasing, then you can go for cyclohexyl, benzyl, or a methyl benzyl group. Or if suppose we say that when you are putting an isopropyl group, there is a decrease in biological activity. It means that the bulkiness is not the important criteria for increasing the biological activity. So you have to try putting a straight chain and with an electron donating group in the substitution, so that there will be an improve in the biological activity. Suppose it is equal, then you can say that instead of a branched alkyl group, you can put an ethyl group to see how it is increasing. Suppose it is increasing, then you can end saying that this is the best molecule which you can get. Suppose it is less, it means that to the ethyl group, if you put an electron withdrawing group, how the effect will be can be understood. And then you can go for phenyl or a benzyl group. Next one. Now this is about cluster significance analysis. This is a very important thing in QSAR, but we will just make it as simple as possible to understand how this cluster significant analysis will help in QSAR. It is nothing but you have a lot of data in that is generated by QSAR analysis. Now how this data can be clustered to understand this, how you can use. You must have played with these molds at your younger stages. There are several molds here. Next slide. Now it is understood that you have to cluster them. Let us assume that you are asked to cluster them according to their shape. Okay. Now what you have done, all the squares onto one side, circles onto the other side, triangles onto the other side, you have made them into 3 clusters. So all were scattered, but now you have segregated them into 3 different groups. That is called as clustering. Next slide. Or maybe, next slide please. Or maybe it is asked that you classify them according to their color. Next, previous slide. If you are said to classify according to their color, you are getting 4 clusters. You have just picked up based on their color. Or you can, next slide. Or it could be depending upon the internal angles. So depending upon the internal angles, you can cluster them. Next slide. So by simply seeing this, you are saying that you can cluster them based on the shape, color, some of the internal angles. So you are making it by clustering them based on their characteristics which are similar. So this is the example which we can take on a lighter way. Suppose in a family you are having, or in a hostel, or in any group where there are 20-30 people, or you are doing a review on TV shows, what kind of TV shows people are seeing, you can easily cluster those TV shows. Suppose children, if you are taking of the age of 1 to 10, they will be very much interested in cartoons, and men will be interested in watching cricket. Women will be interested in watching movies or daily soaps. So you can easily cluster. Or you go to a mall, see how what is that is being purchased on a daily basis, how it is being purchased. So you can easily, that is what the people in mall do, how much, what products are being easily moving or have been sold, that will be clustered, and those will be um, brought more into the mall, so that those will be those, because they are the running products. So that is how you can cluster. Suppose we say you have a classroom, okay, where there are MSc students, assume, because we are I am talking to the MSc students, assume that uh, you have a department. So in the department, how many people are there, how many girls, boys, and how many are MSc first year students, how many are MSc second year students, and how many are organic, how many are inorganic. So there are many groups which you can scatter, but basic cluster is you are all, one cluster is you are all students, the second cluster is you are male and you are female, third cluster is you like how we are you of a certain group, are you an organic student or an inorganic, or you cluster them based on that. So that is how the clustering is done. So that is a lighter way of understanding what clustering is. Next slide please. So you are grouping the objects based on their similarity and their characteristics. So this grouping can be homogeneity or heterogeneity. So, uh, so how close the clusters are and how farther those clusters are, what is the distance between these two clusters, can be understood by this purpose of clustering analysis. Okay, next slide. So this clustering will help in reducing the data. Now, if you see 100 students, and if you are trying to reduce them into clusters, you are easily classifying them into so and so category. So that will help in reducing the data, and also it is easy to understand and explain and also confirm. You can easily say an MSc organics student, please come forward, then that from that cluster only that MSc student will be coming out. So that way you can easily confirm where that data is in a given cluster. Okay, that will help in getting dependent variables into different clusters, and you can easily examine where those variables are. That is how it will help in cluster analysis. Next slide please. Next slide. Okay, so this is what the clustering analysis helps? Previous, how the variables are and what are the similarities and how you can cluster them. Previous slide, next slide. How you can cluster them and how many clusters you are getting. So these clusters can be, if they are similarity clusters, then we call it as hierarchical clustering or agglomerative or decisive. Non-hierarchical, quick. These are the two methods which we use when you have similarity or hierarchical clustering. Generally, clustering in research, whatever we do in QSAR will be similarity clustering. So the number of clusters which you are getting can be easily statistically analyzed as to how many clusters you are having. Based on that, you can uh, pick up the data from the given cluster. Next slide. Now, this is one of the examples which we can talk about. This example tells you that there are two variables and 7 different respondents or different numbers, which we can call it as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and 2 variables. And these are the different things which you got. So A is having 3 variable and B is having 2. So you can plot a cluster scatter plot to understand how this is happening. Next slide. Next slide. So this is how the scatter plot is. A was 3:2, so you have this one, and B was 4:5. This is the one. So you have just put those circles in a scatter plot to understand. Next. Next. So this is how you can do a graphical portrait. Next. I am just putting that into a cluster. Now you can see that A is separate, C is separate, B, we have plotted them. Now we are trying to understand how you can cluster. Because EF are closer to each other, we can say that this is one cluster. D and C is onto the same side, onto similar. So we are saying this is one cluster. Now towards B and F, C is closer. So you can make this as another cluster. Since B is closer to DC, we are putting it as another cluster. Since these are all onto one group, we can say this is another big cluster. If you incorporate A also into it, then this becomes a big cluster. So you can see how many clusters you have: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 clusters. You can do it in a stepwise manner where you can take a bigger cluster, reduce it into smaller clusters, or you can take a smaller clusters each one and then make it into a bigger cluster. You can do vice versa, either in from a bigger to smaller or smaller to bigger. Next slide. So these are the 3 ways in which you can do a clustering, that is called as hierarchical cluster analysis, which is hierarchical, or non-hierarchical, you can do k-mean clustering, or if you can combine both, you can do a 2-step clustering, that is hierarchical and k-mean clustering. Next, what are these hierarchical clusterings? When we talk about HCA, it means that you are either doing it in a step-by-step process where you aggregate the objects or clusters, and then that is a stepwise from single cluster to multiple clusters or multiple clusters to single cluster. What you are doing in agglomerate is you are taking multiple clusters and making it into a single cluster. In decisive, what you do is you take a single cluster and make it into a multiple cluster. That is what is hierarchical clustering, in which you are doing an agglomerate. Next slide. So in agglomerate algorithms, there are different ways in which you can do. That is called a single linkage, complete linkage, average linkage, centroid linkage, and Ward's method. So when you talk about single linkage, next slide. it defines how far these clusters are. The similarity, when you are talking about what is the shortest distance between these objects from one cluster to the other, will define the single linkage. When we talk about complete linkage, what is the maximum distance between the two clusters will be understood. When you talk about centroid method, the mean value of observation between the two clusters will be taken into consideration. So the two clusters with an equal distance, how much is the, what is the centroid between those two? What is the distance between those two clusters can be understood by the centroid method. Next slide. So average linkage, the name itself will tell you that you have to take the distance between the two clusters by an average distance between the pairs of two clusters. Here, previously we were only taking two clusters into consideration, but here all the clusters, two clusters in a given maximum big cluster will be taken to understand the average distance. Words method, when you talk about, we take the similarity between two clusters as a sum of the squares within the clusters over the overall variables. So that it is bit a lengthy one, but if you understand this definition, that will be more than enough. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so a two-step non-hierarchical clustering, when we are talking about, so here, how we can how this hierarchical clustering analysis will help is to understand how many clusters you have, and based on the clusters, how the solution can be obtained, can be understood from this hierarchical clustering. Non-hierarchical, again, you can understand as to how many objects have been assigned in the cluster analysis and number of clusters, how many you have. You can easily specify as to how many number of clusters you have in a non-hierarchical clustering. Next one. So in two-step, you will, next slide, please. Next slide. So this is how you can cluster them. You can, previous slide. Sequentially, you can cluster one by one, or you can do a parallel cluster, or you can do an optimized k-means cluster. K-mean cluster means one point to other point. How much is the mean? And how much is the mean between these two circles, or these two circles, or the four circles? Two circles each time you will assign and understand what is the mean difference between these two circles. So based on that, you can cluster, and that acts as a seed of the cluster. And that seed you take, and around that seed, how many data points you have, that will be made into one cluster, and another seed you take and check the data points nearer to that and understand how many clusters. Remember that that will help you understand the data in a easier way. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Two-step clustering, when okay, we'll just go to free Wilson analysis. Free Wilson, you must have studied earlier also. This is a approach where, suppose you have a parent compound for which you know the biological activity which has been measured, and what you are doing is you are comparing this biological activity with other analogs, and to understand whether this analogs with different substituents can have a increased biological activity or not, can be understood by this free Wilson's analysis. Next slide. So this was given in 1964 by Free and Wilson, a mathematical model. So they said that the substituent present in a given molecule, their presence or absence, how much is the effect on the biological activity? If it is present, they gave a value of 1. If it is absent, they gave a value of 0, and correlated this functional groups to the biological activity. So what they have done is they have developed a additive mathematical model. That is, suppose you have two similar substituents on the same group. How these two similar substituents are they increasing? If suppose they are increasing, you are adding 1 plus 1. If it is decreasing, it is 0. If suppose you have 3, it means 1 plus 1 plus 1, 3. So you are adding the presence of this functional group to the biological activity. This can be easily understood from the coming slides. Next slide, please. So suppose we say that you have set of analogs which are present in a given functional. This is a molecule, and these X12, KL and UY are the different substituents which are present on this. How these substituents which are present on the group or the drug molecule, how they are influencing the biological activity has been studied by the Free Wilson's approach. So each substituent which is present, how it is affecting, is it having a positive effect or a negative effect? Depending upon if it is improving the biological activity, how many substituents which are improving the biological activity of the similar functional group will be added to the biological activity. If suppose they are decreasing the biological activity, then it will be made into 0. So next slide. Next slide. So this is the equation which was given by Free Wilson, that is biological activity is sum of AI, Xi and mu. Mu is nothing but the activity of the reference compound without any functional groups. And if suppose you put some functional groups, let us assume X1, X2 till Xi. These are the different positions of the functional groups which are present. These positions, how they are influencing the biological activity has been studied. Xi is nothing but the, is it increasing or decreasing the biological activity? If it is increasing, you put Xi as 1. And if it is decreasing, you put Xi as 0. So that means this value, depending upon what all functional groups here you have. Let us assume you have X1, X2, X3, 3 functional groups which are increasing the biological activity. It means you are putting 1 into 3. Suppose it is decreasing the biological activity, you will put 0. It means there is a decrease in the biological activity. This is how you can read the equation. Next slide. So there are still drawbacks in the Free Wilson's analysis, but the main drawback is you need to have at least 2 different positions of substitution in a chemical modification. Otherwise, it will not work. And how this new combination of substituents which are present, how these can be predicted has not been understood by this. And single point determination obscures the statistical results. Each time you put a substitution and understand the Free Wilson approach, the whole of the equation will be changing. So that is again a big problem. And these are the major drawbacks in Free Wilson's analysis. Otherwise, it is a best model. And this is one of the best models where the mathematical approach towards biological activity has been studied. Next. Now coming to the case studies, you have 3 case studies in your syllabus. So I have just taken based on your syllabus the case study and QSAR. One of the best examples which we can talk about is pyranynamine, which is an anti-allergic drug. Okay, this is used as a QSAR model. So this is the structure of pyranynamine. So what they have done in this QSAR model is the whole structure of the pyranynamine has been kept as it is, and only on the phenyl ring which is present here, XYZ substituents have been changed to understand how it is affecting the biological activity of this pyranynamine. So here, what they have done here is they have gone for the molecules here the taking 19 compounds into consideration, they have come up with a first quasar equation where they obtained a equation like log 1 by c is equal to minus 0.14 sum of pi minus 1.35 sum of sigma square minus 0.72. So there is a negative coefficient in front of both the physicochemical parameters, right? So it means that the activity is inversely proportional to the physicochemical parameters. That is, if you are putting a pi value here, the biological activity is decreasing, or sigma value here, the biological activity is decreasing. So this relationship, which is inversely proportional, and whether you put an electron withdrawing group or an electron donating group, there will be always a decrease in the biological activity in the molecule. So to overcome this negative effect on the biological activity, further they have gone for synthesizing, next slide, 61 molecules which have all these parameters of hydrophilic substituents, hydrophobicity, inductive effect, electron withdrawing, acyl oxy values, etc. So they came up with an equation where they have seen that when they have put 3 methylamide or ethylamide or propylamide at the third position, it was seen that there was a increase in the biological activity, which means that there is a, because of the increase in the hydrophobic nature, there is increase in the biological activity. So then they have put inductive effect, that means the electron withdrawing group at the 5th position, when they put, there was an increase in the biological activity. And when they have put hydrophilic groups like hydroxyl or SH or NH2 or any of these groups at the 3rd, 4th and the 5th position, they have seen a drastic increase in the biological activity. It means that if you have hydrogen bonding groups present, these H whatever are there, they can easily form a hydrogen bond with the active site amino acids of any group. That will improve the biological activity. And also electron withdrawing groups like CF3 and NHCOMe at the 3rd and the 5th position also increase the biological activity. And acyl oxy group at the 4th position, which is acting as a prodrug, it means that when you hydrolyze this group, a hydroxyl group will be obtained. Now, this acting as a prodrug, because of its less polar nature, it can easily cross the blood-brain, cross the cell membrane, and because of that, it is very important. So, increased activity of 4-acyl oxy group was explained as it acts as a prodrug and it is less polar than the hydroxyl group. So these analogs would be expected to cross the cell membrane and reach the receptor more efficiently than the free hydroxyl group. So the NHSOR2R, it is said that this group which is present has a reduced effect on the biological activity, which means that this has an unfavorable steric or electronic factor which is peculiar for this group. So based on this, they came up with an equation where the equation shows that still this pi and the sigma value has a negative value as a previous equation. But if you see, the inductive effect at the 5th position has a positive effect on the biological activity, and hydrogen bond donor groups at 3rd, 4th and 5th position, which is given by plus 3.9, it is also increasing the biological activity. But this group has a negative effect of minus 6.3, and beta volume, that is MV, That means a bulky group at the meta position has a positive effect on the biological activity, and an acyl oxy group at the fourth position also has a positive effect on the biological activity. This was the equation which was obtained from the 61 molecules which were synthesized. Next slide. To overcome this, they again synthesized 37 molecules to understand how this will be affecting the biological activity, and it was tested with the steric F5 parameters, and also explored for the hydrogen bonding capability of these molecules and hydrophobic substituents, whether they are good for the activity, and how a range of very hydrophilic substituents were also tested to understand, but the meta volume has been removed. And one more parameter has been added into the equation, which is called as HB intra, which means that the ortho substitution groups, when they are present, they will have an intramolecular hydrogen bonding, which is having a negative effect on the biological activity. So you can see this pi values and the sigma values still have the negative effect on the biological activity, but the inductive effect has improved, resonance effect has reduced, hydrogen bond donor capability at third, fourth, fifth position of the group as increasing the biological activity. Hydrogen bond intramolecular hydrogen bonding has a negative effect. Acylocracy group at the fourth position has a positive effect on the biological activity. Next slide. So here, based on this equation, what they have come to a conclusion is that at the third and the fifth position of the group, now the whole group which is present has been kept as it is. Only on the phenyl group you can see NHC double bond or OH. It means that a polar group has been added at the third and the fifth position of the aromatic ring. Rest of the pyridinamine has been kept as it is. Now, at the third and the fifth position, when you are putting the groups, you have in the equation 345 HBD is a positive value. That means hydrogen bond donor groups. Now, if you see their interaction with the protein, it is seen that these polar groups definitely had hydrogen bond interactions with the molecule. When you are putting an acyloxy group at this position, again, this had a hydrogen bond interaction at the fourth position. So putting all these into consideration, they have come to a final compound. Only Quasar model has given this final compound, and this is very interesting, and an example that demonstrate that Quasar studies and computers are a powerful tools in medicinal chemistry. So this approach would not have been possible without Quasar model. This molecule would not have been obtained, and it is seen to their surprise that this is 1,000 times more active than the previous pyranidamine molecule, only where you had a just phenyl group. By just substituting at the third and the fifth position, there is an increase in the biological activity of the molecule. Next slide, please. Next case study is a structure-based drug design approach, where this is a molecule which is called as crisatonib, which is potent and selective inhibitor against CMET and ALK. Now, what is this CMET and ALK? CMET and ALK are cancer proteins or receptor tyrosine kinases, which become cancerous because of the aberrant signaling, and these are very attractive targets for therapeutic intervention. Okay, so when we talk about this case study, next slide. This is what is the approach. What they have done is they have taken a molecule already available as an CMET active drug molecule, and based on the structure based drug designing, they have finally come to a molecule called crisatinib, which had an increased activity compared to the previous molecule, both on c-Met as well as ALK inhibitor, as an ALK inhibitor. This was a single inhibitor molecule, the previous one, but crisatinib is a multi-step molecule. That is a dual inhibitor. Next slide. Now, to start the project, what they have done is they have taken 3 molecules which are available in the literature, which were acting as anti-cancer drugs. Sunitinib now is an anti-cancer drug which has been approved. The second and the third molecule were also taken. Now, the second molecule, the molecule 2, which you are talking about, compound 2, was identified as a c-Met inhibitor, and this has been taken into consideration for the improvement for as a dual inhibitor. So taking this as a starting point, next slide, they have taken this molecule, they have designed the third molecule, where the difference between the second and the third molecule is that you have a chloro group attached at this position and an indolone molecule and a pyrrole molecule is present. A side chain aryl group has been added up. So
Ma'am,
here, yeah,
ma'am, please conclude within 10 minutes, ma'am, please.
fine, this will be over.
Okay.
So here, because of this molecule, this had hydrogen bond interactions at this position, and the sulfonyl group had a hydrogen bond interaction with AsP1222, and this aryl group had a pi-pi stacking interaction with tyrosine 230. So these were the properties, plus the side chain was going into an solvent accessyl adenyl pocket. Okay, so this, next slide. Next slide. Now this shows how the molecule is actually interacting with the protein. Now you can see a pi-pi stacking interaction between the dichloro aryl group and the tyrosine. And then this was having an hydrogen bond interaction with aspartate 1223, and the indolone ring was having an interaction with methionine as well as proline. So these, taking these into consideration, they wanted to design a new molecule. Next one. So by several ways of synthesizing the molecules, they came to a conclusion of designing 5-aryl 3-benzyl oxy 2-aminopyridine. Okay, 5-aryl 1 2 3 4 5-aryl 2-benzyl oxy 2-aminopyridine scaffold. This was the final molecule which they came up to. So the sulfonyl group which was present has been reduced to an oxygen. Okay. Now next. So this is the molecule. These are the molecules which they have synthesized to understand. So here the groups which were added at the aryl position, at the 5th position, were the different substituents. But if you see the biological activity of these molecules, this has a better biological activity which had the similar kind of side chain as the molecule 3. So taking this into consideration, they went further to understand. Next slide. Further iterations have been done, and they came up to a conclusion that the same molecule with piperidine ring and a pyrazole ring at this position, and a fluoro and a methyl group at these positions was more biologically active, because with a Ki value of 0.18 for c-Met and 0.19 micromolar for the c-Met cell itself. And they, because this is a chiral center, they came up with 2 isomers, S and R isomer, and this R isomer was having a dual inhibition. Next slide. Next slide. And also they have shown similar kind of interactions of pi-pi stacking and hydrogen bond interactions. Next slide. Next slide. So finally, it has been demonstrated that from a lead molecule, they came up with a new molecule, which is a crisatinib, and now it is used as a drug, and it is used for treating patients with non-small cell lung cancer, inflammatory myofibroblastic tumors, lymphomatic tumors, adenocarcinoma, esophagus cancer, glioblastoma. All these can be treated because CMET and ALK are the most signaling proteins which have been seen in cancer. So this is one of the best examples which we can talk when we are talking about structure-based drug designing. Next slide. You want me to continue with oxomin quin or stop? Third case study. Ramu?
Madam, please give conclusion, ma'am. Hello? Madam, please give conclusion, ma'am.
Shall I proceed with oxomin quin? It will take 5 minutes.
Madam,
Third case study.
actually we have the one more session.
Okay, proceed with the next slides.
Yes,
Because I have cut this. Conclusion is to tell you, conclusion, QSAR is the best method which you can, which will help in designing new molecules which can interact with the proteins to give you a better biological activity. So QSAR will help in how a functional group is influencing the biological activity can be easily understood by QSAR studies. Okay, I will conclude with this because of time constraint. If next time there is a possibility, I will proceed with the molecular modeling studies. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Babu.
If you have
Babu.
any questions, I am ready to answer.
Yeah, from participants, please, if you have any doubts, please ask here.
Good afternoon, madam.
Yeah.
Madam, I am Rupavani. Madam, how ES steric factor is directly related to the activity, madam? Ante if bulky group is there, whether the activity increases or decreases?
It all depends upon how the site of action is. Suppose you are talking about a protein where the molecule is going and interacting, the drug molecule is interacting. If that protein has a increased active site, if you have a bulky molecule, there's no problem. But the site is smaller. If you put a bulky molecule, there will be a steric clash. That steric clash will have a negative effect on the biological activity. That is how it can decrease. If suppose you have a cavity in the active site, and if you can improve, if you can put a bulky group in that cavity, there is a possibility of hydrophobic interactions between them that will increase the biological activities. So you have to see how the active site of the protein is, and based on that you can design the molecules to put a bulky group, or should we reduce a bulky group? Okay.
So just now you have given the madam isopropyl and N-propyl and isopropyl.
In the hydrolysis of esters, if you are talking about, we have just seen when you talk about hydrolysis of ester, there is a tetrahedral transition state which will be forming. So because of the bulkiness, the incoming group will be hindered from attacking the carbonyl. So because of that, there will be a reduce in the biological activity. There the bulkiness is playing a role.
Okay.
Yes, any more?
Madam, one more. Shall you give the reference for this topic, madam, other than Kilpatrick?
Kilpatrick is the best book.
There is no other book, madam.
There are many books, but Patrick is the best book which you can refer, because all the syllabus what we have framed from Quasar is from that same book.
Okay, thank you, madam. Hammett constant also directly related with the biological activity, na madam?
Yes, yes.
So sigma value is positive, then activity increases. Like that only, na madam?
No, sigma value positive means it is electron withdrawing. Negative means electron donating. So you have to see whether you need an electron withdrawing group or an electron donating group to increase the biological activity. Or so based on that, you can put a plus value or a minus value.
Okay, thank you, madam.
But the
Thank you,
constant which we are talking about, if it is negative, there will be a decrease in biological activity.
madam.
The number which we are talking about in
Okay.
the equation, if it is negative, then it will be
There
decreasing
will
to
be
decrease in biological activity.
okay. Okay. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, madam. Thank you, madam. It's a very nice lecture about QSR studies. Madam, it's a very good lecture, madam, towards the fourth semester students. Within the small time, almost covered fourth semester QSS syllabus
Only molecular
completely.
modeling is left out.
Yeah, it's a very small syllabus in third unit, ma'am.
Mm.
And you have covered completely what is the QSS studies, what is the correlation between biological activity and physicochemical properties like ionization constant, electronic effect, partition coefficient, and lipophilicity constant, steric factor, and have been covered and Hans equation, cracks models, and you have covered free Wilson analysis. It is the best mathematical method to analysis biological activity, and you have given some case studies like pyranamine, chrysotinibine. So, and but it is very unfortunately we will lose much time, ma'am.
Yeah, I know.
Otherwise,
I don't know. There was a problem because we do screen sharing for the MSc students also. There was no problem. Today only I faced this problem. Maybe because of the size, I think there was
maybe,
a
ma'am.
problem.
Yeah, ma'am.
Mm.
And it's a very great thankful from the Department of Chemistry, madam. And
Okay.
it's a small appreciation certificate to you, ma'am. Dr. Bounds Reddy can share the appreciation certificate to Vijulata, ma'am.
Felicitation.
So it is felicitation time to speaker Professor M. Vijulata, madam, Department of Chemistry. It is our honor to felicitate Professor M. Vijulata, ma'am. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you. Yeah.
And participant have the second session at 2 o'clock by Professor Girija madam from Palamur University. So we'll share a link at before 10 minutes. Then we'll meet in second session. Thank you, participant. Thank to all. Now I can end the program.